I'm all about productivity and using my time as wisely as I can. And that's why on this particular Sunday, I'm sitting inside on a rainy day, powering through a bunch of awesome tasks that I really want to achieve. And I've been doing that by doing the deep work. What is the deep work? Well, it's the topic of today's book review on Cal Newport's Deep Work, which is Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. Why I particularly love this book, which is for all productivity enthusiasts, knowledge workers, entrepreneurs, people who basically want to get more out of every single minute of their day, is that he actually speaks to something that I've known for a long time, but didn't necessarily put into words as the form of deep work. So what is deep work? It's working in a state of high concentration without distractions on single tasks. So in my book, The Suitcase Entrepreneur, check it out, might be right there, I talked about single tasking versus multitasking, because you and I both know when you've got that browser open with like a bazillion tabs and you're flicking between them trying to do all sorts of stuff, or if you're one of those people who checks their email inbox constantly every 10 minutes, you are being your own worst distraction. I mean, we all do it, right? We value busyness over boredom. And I'll come to that in a little minute. So what I like about Cal's book is, one, it is actually split out into two parts. First of all, he explains all about what deep work is and the different methods in which you can do it. And then the second part of the book is about how you put it into action, which I think is pretty rare in a lot of books. You often get books that explain the really deep concepts that you need to grasp, but they don't give you the how-to actually do it. And that's what I like about Cal's book. Now, he is also the author of So Good They Can't Ignore You and several other books. He's currently an assistant professor of computer science at Georgetown, and he uses the deep work methodology for himself. So let's dive into a couple of things that you're going to learn from this book, and then it's up to you to pick it up and see how deep work will be able to impact your life. But I highly recommend it. One of my favorite books this year. Every single page I read, I was like, you got it, Cal. Totally understand. So the thing about deep work is that it's professional activities done in a highly concentrated, distraction-free environment that actually push your cognitive abilities. They stretch your mind beyond belief. And every single time you do them, they stretch you a little bit more. And that, I guess, is the thing about deep work. You can't just do it overnight. It takes practice. It takes practice in not giving in to distractions, into embracing the boredom. So repeating and doing tasks for long periods of time without all this excitement around you. It also takes discipline to create the right environment so that you aren't distracted, so that you aren't lured by these things that seem more exciting. Now, these efforts create new value, increase your skill, and are hard to replicate, which ultimately makes you more valuable in this world. And I think that was the main message that I took home from Cal, is that we've kind of lost this ability to be able to do deep work. We are so embracing the disruptive technologies like social media that are causing us to constantly flit and put our attention all over the place and feel frazzled and overwhelmed and completely unproductive at the end of the day, versus doing the deep work where we stay highly focused, singular in our focus, and we ship the really important stuff. Now, this is kind of a dying art, as I just mentioned, and it's something that we need to develop. So a couple of things that Cal suggests in his book to do that is to develop a daily routine where you actually go ahead and do the deep work. So why is deep work valuable? Because it maximizes the amount of productivity that you can squeeze out of any amount of time, which has got to be a good thing, right? So there are 4 key ways that you do this, and I've mentioned some of them, but I'm just going to repeat them. Single tasking. Focus on one single task for the period that you need to do your work in, which is typically 1 to 2 hours at least. So this is perfect if you're wanting to write a book, get a report done, focus in on some copy, maybe do a design on your website, whatever it may be that you need a good couple of hours of work for. This is a perfect idea of deep work. And sometimes that actually just may be losing yourself in your thoughts and philosophizing around a topic or an area that you really are deeply interested in. In fact, that was one thing he mentioned throughout the book, is just the ability to give yourself space to think and ponder and ruminate. The second part of deep work is without distractions. Pretty easy, right? Fewer distractions, the more work you're going to get done. And whenever you're sitting at the kitchen table or in a busy office space or in a cafe, there's likely to be tons of distractions. And if you're no good at being able to block those out, you need to take yourself off to an environment where there is literally no chance anybody can open the door and go, "Hey Natalie, do you want to play Ultimate Frisbee?" The third element to this is intense focus. Obviously, the more you can go all in with your energy on this particular task, the more likely you are to achieve it in a shorter amount of time because you've given it your all and your energy hasn't been diluted or distracted from the task at hand. And the fourth element is for extended periods of time. So that's the key here, not these short little 25-minute Pomodoros, which are great for achieving small, short tasks that you know you can get done in that time or in a couple of Pomodoros. No, I'm talking about, as I mentioned, several hours. And for some people, this is an entire day of doing deep work on one singular task. And the reason why Cal asks us to do things for extended periods of time has to do with something called attention residue. Now, what this is when you have just finished doing a task, let's say you've just been answering some emails, a part of your attention is still in your email inbox when you switch to, say, writing a new blog post. So you're actually in between, you're sort of in limbo of two tasks versus complete no distraction, singular task focus. So you can imagine when we're on our phone, we're listening to an audiobook, we're also tweeting away, we maybe have the TV on over here, or maybe we have an audiobook in our brain. There are so many things vying for our attention, and each of those things as we do it is lingering in our brain, and we're still thinking about it even after we've finished the task. So you can see why we're kind of making it hard for ourselves in this day and age with all our connectedness and 24/7 online. And the bad thing about this is that you are starting to hurt your performance. You and I both know it. If you are partly focused here and partly focused here, you're not doing a good job of either, right? So this is where deep work comes in. Okay, so now we'll move into the second part of the book, which is where Cal offers up some great ways to actually do the deep work. Here are 4 of them, the 4 key ones that he talks about. And the first one is do the deep work. Now, I know that may seem really freaking obvious given the title of this book, but this is where we fall down. It is harder to do the deep work. It is easier to do shallow work, flitting between emails and social media and all these things that vie for our attention and make us look busy, but not actually allow us to be performing at our best. So it takes time, it takes effort, and it is a muscle that you get to exercise to be able to be an effective deep worker. Secondly is to embrace boredom. We are so used to filling our time and attention with something because we frankly don't know how to just be and be present. And a perfect example of that, where I know I do that, is in line at an airport. I will often be reading a book on my Kindle or listening to an audiobook, but more and more I have been attempting to just be present in the moment, watching and observing, and just embracing the fact that I'm in a line that is maybe moving slowly. But the problem is that if you are distracted the minute there's a slight hint of boredom, you're never going to be able to be productive, focused, and performing at your best. So you need to train yourself to embrace boredom. The third thing that Cal suggests is that you quit social media. Now, he's actually come out with a new book called Digital Minimalism, which I will be reviewing in the future as I have a copy. But I imagine that this is going to be a hard one for a lot of us who live and breathe social media. In this instance, he's really talking about not allowing it to distract you from the most important work that you need to do in your day. So set times when you get to check in. So for example, if you've done 2 to 3 hours of solid deep work in the morning, you give yourself a reward at around midday when you're maybe having your lunch and you get to check in on your favorite social media sites or your news feeds. And the fact is that social media is addictive in nature, so it is completely opposite to the work that you need to do when you're going deep. So you just simply need to limit your time on it, and you will feel so much better as you start to see the rewards and results of the deep work that you're doing. And finally, he suggests that you drain the shallows. What does that mean? It means drain the shallow work from your day. So making phone calls, doing administrative tasks, checking in on emails, those things are all shallow work, and the more you do them, the more draining they become. So he suggests that you minimize those by either outsourcing them or leaving them to a portion of the day when your brain can no longer focus on the deep work, and those are perfect times to just focus on some of those shallow activities without compromising your performance throughout the best part of the day when you are on fire. He then goes on to offer 4 different ways of actually implementing the methodology of deep work, and I'm going to leave that up to you. So you can read through his book, see which of those 4 methods suits you best, where you're at in your time of life right now, which of those things you know you're going to stick with to make it happen. So definitely check out Cal's book. Links are below on Amazon, and if you've read it, please let me know what your biggest learning from it was. Now I'm off to snuggle up by the fireplace and read my next book. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, can you give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, because every single Sunday I'll be releasing a book review and my key kind of summary notes from it that you can use today, even if you don't pick up the book.